Welcome to the Explainer. You know, I absolutely love taking these really complex flight concepts and turning them into clear, visual roadmaps that we can navigate together. And today, we're taking to the skies. We're going to break down one of the most elegant but totally demanding performance flight maneuvers out there, the Chandelle. Think of it kind of like a roller coaster ride. Just like a roller coaster uses that massive forward momentum from a steep drop to shoot itself up a huge vertical loop, a pilot uses the Chandelle to trade their airplane's forward momentum for upward height. It's just a brilliant display of physics in motion, and we're going to look at exactly how it's done.
So, what actually is a Chandelle? Well, let's dive into this definition. It's definitely not just your everyday turn. It's a maximum performance climbing turn. The entire goal here is to change your heading by exactly 180 degrees, while simultaneously gaining as much altitude as physically possible, and eventually rolling out of the turn, flying just a tiny bit above the aircraft's stall speed. You might be wondering, why even do this? Well, picture this. A pilot finds themselves boxed into a really tight dead-end canyon. The Chandelle is literally the ultimate, most efficient solution to completely reverse your direction in that confined space, all while gaining the safety of altitude.
And take a look at this beautiful parabolic curve. It perfectly illustrates our complete flight path for the maneuver. You can clearly see the progression here, right? Starting on the left with a really high-speed level entry, then plunging into a bank and carving right upward through the sky. By the time the plane reaches the opposite direction on the right side there, it's essentially teetering in a very low-speed rollout. We're going to break down absolutely every single segment of this curve.
Here's our flight plan for this explainer. First, the anatomy of a Chandelle. Second, the entry and initial climb. Third, the 90-degree transition. Fourth, the rollout and recovery. And fifth, airmanship and execution. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Part 1, the anatomy of a Chandelle, looking at the energy dynamics.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between the two states of the aircraft. On one side, we start out with high momentum and high power. That's your starting energy. Once you commence the turn, you're pulling the airplane into a steep climb. The whole point of this maneuver is to execute a perfect energy trade-off. You are bleeding off all that forward airspeed to buy as much vertical altitude as you possibly can. You're basically acting as an energy manager, converting your speed directly into height. Moving right along to Section 2, the entry and initial climb. This is where the magic starts. Okay, so the absolute crucial point here, you have to execute these specific steps simultaneously. First off, you establish an entry speed that definitely does not exceed your maneuvering speed, or VA, because you don't want to overstress the airframe. Actually, if you're in a low-powered trainer, you might even have to enter a shallow dive just to build up enough speed first. Once you're there, you roll the aircraft into a 30-degree bank. And you got to cap it at 30 degrees or the plane just won't climb well. Right as that bank is locked in, you pull back on the control column to raise your pitch and smoothly crank it to full or climb power. But as you do this, physics totally fights back. As you start to feel that airspeed drop off while you're pushing all that engine power, the nose of the plane is naturally going to want to pull hard to the left. To counteract that, you have to physically press the right rudder pedal. It is absolutely vital to keep that coordination ball on your instrument panel perfectly centered. It requires a really nuanced touch as all those aerodynamic forces start to shift around you.
All right, Section 3, the 90-degree transition. We've officially hit the halfway mark.
Just look at that number. 30 degrees. The discipline you need here is immense. During the entire first half of the Chandelle, from 0 all the way to the 90-degree point, that 30-degree bank angle must stay rigidly, perfectly constant. Even as you're continually pulling back on the elevator to increase your pitch, and even as the controls start to feel super heavy and sluggish in your hands, that bank angle simply cannot change.
Right at this 90-degree transition point, you will literally feel the energy bleeding off because most of your airplane's momentum is actively transforming into altitude right here. You're sitting there watching the airspeed indicator steadily drop about 1 to 2 knots every single second. You're literally cashing in all your speed chips for altitude.
Next up, Section 4, the rollout and recovery. It's time to exit the maneuver.
Looking at this from a top-down perspective, you can see exactly where that gradual rollout begins. If you track the dotted line right past the 90-degree point, you see the transition happen. You hold your pitch, you hold your power, but you slowly start taking out that 30 degrees of bank. It's this beautiful dance of timing your hands and your feet, aiming to be perfectly wings level exactly at the 180-degree mark from where you started.
This final moment, incredibly delicate. You have to roll out, recovering perfectly in the opposite direction, giving yourself a tiny margin of plus or minus 10 degrees, all while teetering just 5 knots above the aircraft's stall speed. You hold that incredibly slow airspeed momentarily, being super careful not to stall, and then you just slightly lower the nose to resume straight and level flight, accelerating without losing a single inch of that hard-earned altitude. Finally, Section 5, Airmanship and Execution. Because, safety absolutely comes first.
Beyond just moving the controls, true airmanship dictates a really strict protocol here. Because you're intentionally bringing the aircraft right to the edge of its stall speed, you absolutely must practice this at least 1,500 feet above ground level, just to give yourself a solid safety buffer. You've got to complete a thorough HAZL check to clear your airspace before you even think about starting. And strategically, you want to start the maneuver flying crosswind, intentionally making your 180-degree turn into the wind. That minimizes your drift and keeps you over the same general spot on the ground. And of course, all of this is happening while making those perfectly smooth power changes and obsessively keeping that balance ball centered.
Pulling this off is an incredible test of a pilot's feel for their machine. You are riding the very edge of the airplane's aerodynamic limits. So I want to leave you with this to think about. Armed with an understanding of this delicate balance of physics, energy management, and raw piloting skill, could you smoothly execute those simultaneous inputs and perfectly trade your momentum for maximum altitude without crossing the line into a stall? It is a truly fascinating challenge. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep looking up.